Polish and Allied military fighters tonight had to be picked up again due to increased Russian shelling of Ukraine right on the border of NATO airspace. Tonight, intensive long-range aviation activity of the Russian Federation is observed, related to missile strikes carried out against facilities located on Ukrainian territory. Russian missiles and suicide drones once again fell on a sleep-deprived Ukraine, on civilian facilities and critical infrastructure in 6 regions, just across the Polish border. At the same time, across our eastern border, on the territory of the Union of Russia and Belarus, the spectacle continues. Alexander Lukashenko, subordinate to Russia, the satrap of Belarus, is testing the possibility of launching tactical nuclear weapons, this time so that everyone can see the power of the Union of Russia and Belarus. This is a warning to the West not to cross the red line in helping Ukraine, while there is no real threat of some kind of nuclear conflict breaking out, because in fact these exercises are quite routine. What Russia doesn't want to show, either externally or internally, is the level of loss of life and equipment during the aggression against Ukraine, where Putin may have lost close to 500,000 troops. The Russians do not publish data on their own losses. They don't publish for the reason that otherwise they would have to admit and deny their own propaganda, that this is no longer a special military operation, although of course it never was, but simply an aggressive war with heavy human and equipment losses. Independent investigative journalists grouped in organizations such as Bellingcat have been counting the equipment destroyed in Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. According to Jakub Janowski, a member of Bellingcat and author of the Oryx blog, Russian losses in heavy equipment alone have already exceeded 15,000 pieces.
It's a complete set of equipment losses for which we have visual evidence, with exception of few cases where, for example, official confirmation was provided despite no visual confirmation.
According to the British Ministry of Defence, the average daily number of Russian war casualties, taking into account those killed and wounded, in 2024 was on average close to 900 people. The Russians are throwing waves of people around like a meat grinder. This is due to the tactics of the Russians have been using for many months, namely throwing so-called cannon fodder in successive attacks on fortified Ukrainian positions. The Russians, as in all previous wars, have no regard for human life. According to confirmed data by the British BBC television, more than 50,000 Russians may have been killed during the aggression against Ukraine. We are only talking about those killed who have been found and have their burial places. In the interest of Poland, it is in our interest for the Russians to derail in Ukraine and to suffer the greatest possible human and equipment losses there. That is why today, as before, it is important to have the West's continued support for Ukraine's armed forces. This gives Poland time to strengthen its defences and better prepare the Polish armed forces. The only question is whether Donald Tusk's government, which has its eyes set on Germany, will know how to use this time. Radosław Jankiewicz, Telewizja Republika.